SourceFedNerd Movie Club, it's me Jenny, aka ClassyLibrarian, and this week's movie was Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. And my quick review for this is if you like Guy Ritchie films, then I'd really recommend this film. I realised about 2 minutes into this film that I hadn't actually seen any Guy Ritchie films that hadn't featured Sherlock Holmes as the primary protagonist, so I hadn't really seen any of his primary films that people always reference, but I could immediately see his stamp on this film. He's got a very specific directorial style. It's very engaging in that it really gets the perspective of the characters, particularly the sequence, for example, after the card game, where it's all first person or directly in the face of the character, where you really feel exactly how this character feels, and you know, when he throws up you're like, yeah, that's how I feel right now, and it's very specific to this director. Similarly, he has a lot of very important timing features, which, to be honest, the only director that I can compare him to in terms of his ability to get a rhythm to a film is Quentin Tarantino, and these guys share a lot of themes in terms of violence and content, but also their sense of rhythm and pace within a film, where there's almost a beat to every scene, and they almost choreograph obviously not dance sequences, but they choreograph their just general rhythm to their sequences, which I really enjoy because it's so engaging, particularly in this film where a lot of the plot is dependent on the timing of the characters. The entire plot could go a completely different direction at multiple points depending on who gets to point B at a certain time, and it puts you on the edge of your seat. It really gets you into the moment, the way that the music builds and the way that the editing works together with the direction, so that you really get into these moments where you're like, oh, the tension is building. The direction throughout this is brilliant. In terms of characters, I think the only way I can really kind of simply describe the way that the amount of characters are balanced and handled in this film is to compare it to Dickens, which sounds really odd out of context, but there are just so many characters in this, and they're all in this enormous hierarchical system where you're trying to work out who is high on the food chain, who is going to get eaten, and you're trying to work out where your characters are in comparison to that food chain, and then there's always multiple connections between each character and at least 4 other characters, and if you were to draw a graph of this, it would be like drawing a graph of a Dickens book, because every character has a connection to another character, whether or not it's business or personal, and I really like that because you're constantly working out the connections, and it really, I'm going to talk about the end, so possible spoilers. I really like how it gets to the end, and the end is ambiguous. It could go so many different ways, but one of the ways it could go is you could compare the characters, our leading 4 characters, and all of the younger generation, as it were, to the older generation of crooks, and you could possibly see the direction of this going in the future as a coming-of-age film where these characters, you can draw direct parallels between our heroes and the villains, and you can see them progressing and becoming those villainous characters. Or it could go completely different. Every single scenario is an option, and I really like that. One of the things I have mixed feelings about is, unlike a Dickens book where each character gets a significant ending, whether it's a death or a different variation on what their life could be, often related to other characters, because there is so much plot and so many characters crammed into this hour-and-a-half long film, the only way to really tie up the ends neatly and efficiently is to have a bloodbath. And that is what happens. And I kind of like that, but also it kind of felt a bit like, oh, okay, this is a bit convenient. We've got another group of people who've died. That's another problem out the way. But overall, I really enjoyed this film. It's so fast-paced. The dialogue is so quick and so efficient. There's multiple meanings. If the title has 5 words in it and has that many connotations and synonyms, and each of them are answered within this film, then you can just tell that this is going to be so complexly written, and just it blew me away by how complex the script was. Whether or not it's the use of Cockney to the point where there's one scene that has subtitles, or just the use of all of the multiple meanings behind it. I just really enjoyed this. It was definitely a film that I would watch again and again. I didn't find it genuinely laugh out loud funny, but I definitely found it witty, I found it humorous, and I enjoyed it overall. I love the sense of ambiguity towards the end, and I like the questions that get answered in this film and the questions that get unanswered. So I would 100% recommend this if you are of legal, age to watch this sort of violent content, because it is violent. There is a lot of horrible language in here. It's been a while since I've mentioned that, R-rated, be prepared, but was very enjoyable, and if you're a fan of Guy Ritchie or Quentin Tarantino, I would really, really recommend watching this because it's a fun time. And yeah, I rambled on for long enough, so that's about it. I will see you guys all next week. Feel free to comment down below anything you want to say, and bye guys.